Hi, my name is Deynum and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made a game called A Simple Survey together with benbonk.
Hey guys.
So last weekend was the Wowie Jam, a game dev event where you have to make a game in 3 days following a certain theme. But this game jam was a bit different than others, at least for me, because I, for the first time ever, wasn't working alone. Instead, I was working together with benbonk, another game dev here on YouTube, and I was pretty nervous because, like I said, I've never worked with someone else on a game before, and this could go terribly wrong or it could go incredibly well. I just had no idea what would happen. So on Friday at 3 PM, the theme for the jam was announced, and it was Failure is Progress. Let's mess with the concepts of winning and losing. I immediately started brainstorming for ideas, but I couldn't really come up with anything. The theme had a lot of potential, don't get me wrong, but I just had one idea that kept coming back, and that was leaving dead bodies behind that you would use to get over obstacles. But I also knew that this had been done before and would probably be done again for this jam, and I wanted our game to just be a bit more unique. So after some time, benbonk suggested to make a narrative game for this jam, since he always wanted to make a game like the Stanley Parable or There Is No Game, but sadly enough he was never able to do it himself because he didn't think he had the right voice for it, but he also thought I did. So we settled on that idea, but there was one problem. The Stanley Parable and There Is No Game are both pretty big, and we're definitely not going to be able to make something like that in just 3 days. So we need some solid but very simple gameplay that we can use as a base to put our narrative over. And that's when we came up with the idea for the game, a really simple quiz or survey with questions that everyone knows the answer to, but if you choose the wrong answer, the narrator gets really mad at you, even to the point of them asking personal, weird, or what he sees as funny questions. We both really liked this idea because it was simple enough to make in 3 days, but interesting enough to make for a good game. We decided I was going to write the script for the game, and also narrate it of course, and he was going to code it and make the art for the game. And so we got to work. For 2 days straight I was just writing the script, sometimes staying up to 3 AM finishing a path for the game. In the end I ended up with 86 unique clips that could be played in the game, for a total of 11 pages. I also made this really awful flowchart to make it a bit more clear what would happen when, but I didn't finish it and it's not at all accurate, something that would really come to bite us later on. But for now I was done writing, and there was just one thing to do: record everything. This was, to put it lightly, an absolute pain. Not only did it take me 2 hours, somewhere along the way I accidentally stopped recording and I didn't notice. So when I got to the end, relieved that it was finally over, I realised I had only been recording for half of the time and had to redo 6 pages of the script. But luckily enough, after that was done, it was easy, right? No, it was not, because I recorded everything in one go, which basically means that all the clips are in one audio file. So for the narration to actually function, I had to extract every single clip from that file. And if you've ever worked with audio, you know this takes a huge amount of time. And to make it even worse, this was all happening just 12 hours before the game had to be submitted, which, to remind you, means it was 3 AM. But I was not going to give up, not when I was this close. I was dedicated to finishing this game on time. So, how did I do it? I stayed up till 9 AM finishing the game, to then sleep for 4 hours and get up to do the final touches, 2 hours before the deadline. So after some really stressful last hours of trying to figure out where every clip should go and when it should be played, which was made really hard by the way, because to remind you, I didn't make my flowchart right, but we finally did it. We started building the game 40 minutes before the deadline. And after missing the deadline because the building process took 20 minutes, we had finally submitted our game. At this point I would love to be able to tell you that everything functioned well and we had managed to make everything work. This was not the case however. The game we submitted was a buggy mess, with basically only the normal questions working properly. Out of the 86 clips, you weren't able to get to 50 of them, and out of 6 different endings, you weren't able to access 4. We were pretty disappointed, to say the least, because our game just wasn't working at all. We still got a lot of positive feedback, but also a lot of complaints about bugs. At this point, I was getting pretty sad that people playing and rating the game weren't getting the game I had been working on. Instead, they got a toned down, buggy version of it, which really hurts because the entire point of the game was that it was complicated, and one wrong answer could lead to really interesting questions, funny lines, and a story about a narrator who doesn't really want to be doing this. But instead, people got a barely functioning 5-question survey with a dude that gets angry if you answer things wrong, which is not the game I made. So we decided to start working on a post-jam version, fixing all the bugs and making sure that everything works perfectly. In the end, we didn't quite succeed, with still some small bugs present, but at least the game was working, and you could finally get to every path, which was enough for me. But then we discovered that we didn't actually have to wait until the jam was over to upload it, and that fixing game-breaking bugs was actually allowed. So after 12 hours of our game being broken, we submitted a fixed version to the jam, and we had successfully created a narrative game in 3 days and, well, 12 hours. I learned some valuable lessons from this experience, because we had overscoped our game pretty drastically. It was just too big and we wanted to do too much. Having a narrator react to everything the player does just isn't a small thing. But another thing I realized is how important good communication is, because neither of us knew how what the other had made actually worked. I didn't understand the code of the game, and benbonk didn't understand my narrative system, so when trying to implement it, we ran into a ton of problems. But luckily enough, in the end, we made it work, partially because we were just communicating a ton. Overall, I'm just really happy with how the game turned out. It's simple yet interesting, but more importantly, it's unique. I also learned a lot from working with someone else, and definitely plan on doing that again in the future. Make sure to go play the game for yourself, it's definitely worth it, and also make sure to check out the video benbonk made on the game. With that said, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.